Hello, sports fan, and welcome to the Packs for Breakfast Who's on First edition of picking our All-Star of All-Star teams. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for, out of all the All-Star first basemen that we've chosen for our teams, we're looking at who is the guy we would take overall at first base. Now, we've done this for the outfield. We've done this for the catcher. So we've ended up with Ivan Rodriguez as our catcher. Mookie Betts was our center, he was our left fielder. Aaron Judge was our center fielder, and Ken Griffey Jr., one of the best defensive, outfielders, ends up in right. But it's because of the way we did the outfield. Go back and watch those videos, and you'll see how I picked my outfielders. Because I had 13 of them to go off of. So, we picked we pick up all these cards, we open a bunch of packs, and then we basically pick all-star teams from all of those packs. So these are the guys that we have come up with recently. These are all the guys that are from all the all-star teams that we put together. So I am going to pick who I would have as my first baseman. Who is the guy out of all 5 of these amazing first basemen? Who is the guy that I would take above all? Now, when you see the names up there, Bagwell, Vaughn, Guerrero Jr., McGriff, and Pujols, a lot of us, we know where we would lean for first base. But before we do any of that, I'd like to give a quick little remembrance of this gentleman right here. This is Rickey Henderson. We recently lost him at the age of 65. All-time stolen base leader. I think he was the all-time leader in leadoff home runs as well. He was a bit flamboyant, but he was one of the best players. Great hustle, great fielder. One of my favorite players of all time. And it's sad that we've lost him. Rest in peace, Rickey. He did, of course, because he was the last man standing, he did get to be our DH on our team. So that was in the last video. He is the DH for this all-star team. And I can't think of a better guy to disrupt, a pitcher's concentration than having a leadoff hitter that can hit home runs and wreak havoc on the base pads. Rickey, we're going to miss you, buddy. So we'll get on to the next part of this, which is picking our first baseman. So when you go over the stats of these guys, they were all very good. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, of course, only in his 6th year. He's only got about 160 home runs, which means he's not quite averaging 30 home runs a season. He's down in the 26 to 27 range. Decent pop, 288 career batting average after 6 years. The thing is, last year he hit 30 home runs, had 103 RBI. He's batted .323. Pretty good, pretty solid year for the big man there. Then you kind of go to Mo Vaughn. Mo Vaun played for about 12 years. He missed the 2001 season due to injury. But he had 328 home runs, had a .293 career batting average, and he was the AL MVP in 1995. So he's every bit worthy to be up on this board with these other great players. I mean, I know there may be not a lot of people that remember Mo Vaughn, but he is every bit worthy of being up there with these guys. He was a very good first baseman. I don't think he ever got to experience a World Series championship. I don't think he was on the teams when Boston won World Series. But it's too bad because he was a great player. The next guy we'll look at is Jeff Bagwell. Jeff Bagwell, 449 home runs. He played 15 seasons in the MLB. He had one of the most unique batting stances. It's like you did not need the little thing at the bottom telling you who was coming up to bat. As soon as he got in his batting stance, you knew who was up to bat. And Jeff Bagwell had good pop in that bat. Almost got to 500. He was about 51 short. He had a 297 batting average over his career, and he was the NL MVP in 1994. That moves us over to also one of my favorite all-time players, the crime dog, Fred McGriff. And that ugly just picture of Jack Murphy Stadium. It's like, it's so terrible. It just looks cheap. But maybe it's because Jack Murphy Stadium is cheap. I don't know. It was made at the time when they were making a lot of cookie cutter stadiums. I think it was made in the 70s. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know exactly when all these stadiums were made. It could have been in the 60s. But in his career, Fred McGriff was 7 short of 500. He had a 284 career batting average, which ironically enough is the lowest out of all these gentlemen. But he was a one-time World Series champion with the Braves. And he's just one of those guys that it's like he was a great team leader. He was a feared bat in the lineup. I mean, it's tough to vote against Fred McGriff. But then we're going to come to the guy that's going to dwarf just about everything all these guys have done. And that's going to be Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols hit 703 home runs. I think he's one of only 4 people in the history of MLB to hit 700 plus home runs. I think it's Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Albert Pujols, and Barry Bonds are the only 4 guys that have ever hit over 700 home runs. His batting average career, 296. Weirdly enough, Bagwell, 297, slightly better. But he was a 3-time MVP, 2-time World Series champion. He had over 3,300 hits in his career. He was just so good for so long. But I got a player up there that's one of my all-time favorites in Fred McGriff. Now, probably the first guy that's going to fall off this board, and I'm going to knock off Mo Vaughn here. Mo Vaughn had a great career, but I think Vlad Guerrero's career will kind of trump his when it's all said and done. But I don't think that Vlad Guerrero's career will eclipse Bagwell's. So I think that Bagwell every bit has the chance to kind of stick around here. But is he better than Pujols? Of course not. Of course not. It's ridiculous. Now you've got my favorite, one of my all-time favorite first basemen, next to probably Andres Galarraga when he played for the Rockies. That probably might be my all-time favorite first baseman. Maybe a little bit of a nod to Don Mattingly. I'm not a Yankee fan, but I was always a Mattingly fan. It's weird. But Fred McGriff's up there. Pujols was never a favorite of mine, but I respect the heck out of Pujols and what he did. But he's wearing a Dodger uniform. A Dodger uniform. I can't stand the Dodgers. I don't know. It's like, but what do I do? What do I do? Do I take my all-time favorite? Because this is a fantasy thing, right? This is a fantasy team. Could we even afford Pujols? Do you realize how much money? If Pujols was in his prime right now, he'd be making Ohtani money. But when it all comes down to it, the best first baseman, it's this guy. It's Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols is going to be my first baseman. 700 home runs means the pitchers are going to wet themselves. And that's all-star for now.